Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Izzy Cinematic Escape on YouTube. I'm your host Izzy, as per usual. Anyone who's new to the channel and happen to find it through the YouTube search engine or other sites, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and spread the word to your friends and family if you enjoyed the content. As well, keep an eye out for the notification bell anytime new content is uploaded. Today's review is based off the 2012 Marvel Cinematic Universe film that began the dominance of Marvel over the cinematic industry, the 2012 ensemble film, The Avengers, starring Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson, and it became this huge monumental event that I don't believe Marvel, or even the fans alike, expected to become the worldwide phenomenon that it eventually became. Directed by Joss Whedon, who everyone is familiar with, who did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the television series, Angel, Firefly, Serenity, Dollhouse. He is a huge force within the cinematic and literary industry, who also wrote the Astonishing X-Men comic book series, which is also something that I recommend. One of the very few directors and writers who has grand experience in terms of being able to handle a myriad of characters at the same time. As well, this was the first time we finally witnessed Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Thor, Nick Fury. We all began to see them live and in color, sharing the big screen for the first time. This was a huge monumental event. The Avengers storyline is as follows. The Avengers have to come together in order to combat the threat of Thor's brother Loki, who has returned after vanishing into a black hole in space following the events of Thor, the very first film. This Avengers film is still, in my opinion, one of my favorites, if I have to be honest with you. Not taking anything away from Age of Ultron, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. It's just there's this level of magic that this film has that I don't believe will ever be replicated, since it was the very first film as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is concerned when it established the Avengers. Along with the fact that as well we begin to see all the relationships within this film going through a period of being fleshed out. We see the seeds of Civil War somewhat being planted at this point in time, where you have the relationship between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, and having the chemistry between Christopher Evans and Robert Downey Jr. come into full effect was a wonderful treat to experience. As well as just how the visual effects and the action, it literally felt like it was a comic book coming to life with all the myriad of different colors and bright colors, and it just seemed right. It seemed perfect. And I just don't believe anything like this was going to happen again. And it's not to try to downgrade what the others brought as far as their terms of quality is concerned, because the Russo brothers did an amazing job as well. Joss Whedon just was able to put a form of magic in there that you just felt that much more emotionally and physically invested within the overall confines of this film. In any event, what I truly enjoyed about the Avengers is not necessarily because of the action and the wonderful colors. What I enjoyed is how the character development came into play. You can have all the wonderful elements of action, visual effects, quippy one-liners. You can have all that, and all of it can actually hit in terms of the perfection of involving the chemistry of the actors. There is nothing wrong with that. But on that regard, when you don't have the character development in order for it to make sense, then to me you don't have a story. To me, it's not anything that allows you to fully care about what's happening on the screen. And with the Avengers, I cared about what was happening to every single one of them. I love the motivation of Loki, and when you really think about the motivation of Loki from a cinematic and literary perspective, I love how each villain within the Marvel with Avengers, how each villain's motivations change. Whereas in the first Thor film, Loki's motivation was to bring about the humanity to subjugation and destruction. In this film, it's all about he wants to rule over humanity. Age of Ultron, you had Ultron who wanted to literally wipe out humanity. Then, of course, with Thanos, with Infinity War and Endgame, it was all about wiping out half a civilization, while as well trying to bring about a new form of existence. Loki in this film is, as I mentioned, very different from his incantation from the first Thor film. Is how it is all about, for him, bringing about a sense of subjugation to humanity. And I love how they were able to incorporate some real life historical events from Nazi Germany, where You had this one scene where Loki makes his grand appearance onto the masses and is demanded for them to kneel before him. And of course, this is a spoiler here. And you had this one older gentleman who stood up against him. And if I'm not mistaken, this man was actually a Holocaust survivor. And it said a quote that, "Not by men like you," said when Loki said that you were made to be ruled, and this man stood up, this one lone man stood up against him and said, "Not by men like you." And he was a Holocaust survivor who witnessed the horrific reign of Adolf Hitler. In that regard, I just love how they incorporated a lot of real historical Easter eggs that I wonder how many people picked up on it. Then of course Captain America comes into the scene, and Iron Man, and that's when you first see Iron Man and Captain America come together as a unit. From a cinematic and literary perspective, I enjoyed every single ounce of this film. It made so much sense, and it became this event where it was a comic book fan's dream come true. And when you finally began to see, when the Avengers come together after Loki brings about the Chitauri army provided to him by Thanos, it was on then. It felt like a Saturday morning cartoon just coming to life. And I love how Josh Whedon managed to just have everything flow seamlessly within the confines of the story. As I mentioned, one of the few directors and writers who has success when being able to handle multiple characters, and you just don't have anything like that anymore. Josh Whedon, for me personally, is a directorial and writing genius, just perfect all across the board. Honestly, I cannot think of a piece of literature or film or show by Josh Whedon that I have not enjoyed, and I try to find myself casting my mind back to remember anything of his that I did not enjoy, and I can't seem to remember or find anything. But overall, the very first Avengers film is still probably my favorite Avengers film of all time. If I'm going to be honest with you, just everything all across the board allows it to become such a memorable event that is perfect from beginning to end. I know there's a lot of people who probably didn't necessarily care for the Captain America uniform. I will admit that I was very glad that they did change the Captain America uniform in much later films, because it just looks very awkward on screen right now. Then you have Tom Hiddleston, who does an amazing job as Loki, still to this very day the best cinematic adaptation of Loki. You have Robert Downey Jr., obviously is the perfect Tony Stark. You'll never find a better Tony Stark. Whoever they decide to try to have replace, or if they even do a remake of Iron Man, God forbid, they have huge shoes to fill. The Hulk, Mark Ruffalo's performance as Bruce Banner, while still to this very day, I'm not exactly keen on the idea of Edward Norton not being Bruce Banner anymore, just because, for me personally, when I see Edward Norton as Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk, he looks and sounds exactly how I always envisioned Bruce Banner from the comic books and even the animated series. Just everything about Edward Norton from that film is perfect. And when I see Mark Ruffalo playing him, again, not taking anything away from Mark Ruffalo as an actor, it's just I become easily distracted when I think, man, how did Edward Norton change into Mark Ruffalo? Just just one of those things. But from the Hulk's appearance in this film still is an amazing sight to see. And there is anyone who is familiar with this film obviously knows about the one scene that is still to this very day an iconic moment in Marvel Cinematic Universe Marvel Cinematic Universe history that had the theater erupting in absolute epic laughter. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, amazing as well. His chemistry with Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Jeremy Renner, Scarlett Johansson, and Mark Ruffalo, top notch, bar none. Still the best adaptation of Thor for me personally. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, great as well. It's when you really think about it from a perspective as a fan, it's very interesting to remember exactly where Marvel started from the first Iron Man, and then here we get to Endgame. Well, technically Spider-Man: Far From Home, and it's very interesting to remember exactly how far along we've came, not only just from a cinematic perspective, but just from a fan's point of view. Just amazing, magical film that I just can't see it. I just can't see anything like this happening again. Hopefully, at some point in the future, we will, especially after Marvel/Disney purchased the Fox Studios, where they finally have the rights to X-Men and the Fantastic Four. So hopefully, at some point, we'll begin to experience that form of magic again. But either way, this will always be the best Avengers film for me, in my opinion. And anyone who has watched this film, let me know in the comment section what you thought about it. Provide a like if you want to. And I hope to hear from you guys soon. Take care and peace out.